Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Leading, captivating leadership narratives, all part of the stuff that growth is made of. I'm excited to introduce you to Terri Adler. Terri is the managing partner and founder of Adler and Stachenfel, and a member of my Vistage CEO Peer Advisory Group. Hello, Terri, and welcome.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to be talking to you today, and I'm excited that our listeners have the opportunity to hear from you. But I'd love to start with just our discussion of having you share an overview of Adler and Stackenfield and what do you do, and a little bit about the history of the firm.
Okay. Again, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this. I love podcasts.
Good.
It's the modern world. So Bruce Stackenfeld and I started this firm, I guess 27 years ago, 28 years ago. It seems like forever. I had worked with Bruce at another firm, and I was an associate. He was a partner. He's about 10 years older than me. And we left that firm and started this firm. He had like three attorneys, and we were really focused into commercial real estate. This was in the, I guess, 90s. Is that possible? Yes. And we started out with this idea that we didn't really want to be like everybody else, but we wanted to be as good as everybody else, right? So we didn't want to be the big law model necessarily. We wanted to have a place that you could have your career and you had a culture. In the beginning, it was pretty crazy. We worked very, very, very hard, long hours, 20+ hour days, 7 days a week. And we were shockingly successful. We were able to get institutional clients, and the firm really grew. And it's evolved over time. And about 5 years ago, Bruce stepped down as managing partner, and I stepped in as managing partner. And now we have about 50 attorneys, and we really are focused into the real estate industry. We call ourselves the pure play in real estate. But that really means not just the dirt, it means corporate, it means litigation, it means, M&A. It's whatever, if it touches into the real estate industry, we can basically do it. And we have a nice array of clients. We have institutional clients, developer clients, high net worths. We have foreign investors. We have US investors going into other jurisdictions. We have tax. And what we really try to do is, build a platform for the lawyers where they can have the careers that they want. We have people who come from big firms that we're looking for something different. And we have people that we hired right out of law school that have been here their whole careers, which at this point in the legal industry is actually quite rare. There's a lot of people who move and move and move. So we're
In
definitely,
any industry,
yeah,
quite frankly. Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting thing. I guess it's sort of a thing of the past because you used to have people who spent their careers in one place, and that just doesn't happen so much anymore. But one of the way we really work to differentiate ourselves, because there's a lot of very smart and talented lawyers in New York, and why should you pick us? And I know, Margaret, you love Jim Collins and all of that. And we read Built to Last and Good to Great and a lot of these management books. And so early on in the firm's history, we said, how are we different? And the conclusion we came to, which is kind of this hedgehog principle of Jim Collins, is that we're not just, it can't just be like, oh, we're good lawyers. So we're about kind of love, and that sounds hokey in a law firm environment, but we're about care and concern for not just our clients and the deals, but for the people who work here, from the receptionist to the managing partner, although no one really cares about the managing partner.
Or sometimes it feels that way.
Sometimes it feels that way.
That's right.
And then that evolved with our clients to, well, how can we serve our clients best? Okay, great legal work, check. But then it became, well, how can we help them with their business? What can we do to make a difference for them? And we realized we kind of know everybody. We've been doing this between Bruce and I and others at this firm for a very long time. And we know so many people in the industry. So it became, oh, this person needs money. This person needs a deal. This person needs a job. This person is looking for someone for a job. This person is like struggling in their kind of startup and they need some ideas. And we started this, what we'll call, help your clients grow their business. I don't know if you want to call it connections. I don't know if you want to, what you want to call it, but we're not brokers. We don't charge a commission, but we help people put deals together. We help create relationships that really have nothing to do with the law business, but they have to do with our business, which is that idea that we're value add to clients beyond just, the legal work that we do, which is how, we pay our bills, but it's really that relationship building. And that's kind of the theme of this firm is what are we doing for the people in the firm? What are we doing for the people who work here? And then how can we be that sort of value add for our clients? And, we've been, notwithstanding the fact that we're up against firms that are thousands of lawyers, we seem to, knock wood, be able to hold our own. So as the law firm world has evolved, we've just kind of been trying to always differentiate ourselves in that way.
Well, boy, there's so many great nuggets of information there. First of all, the other thing that makes you very unique is this pure play real estate, because as you talk about these bigger firms, a lot of them have become absorbed, right? And it's unique to be able to have a firm that really focuses on all aspects of just the real estate component.
Yeah.
But one of the things you said that really stands out is these things you're talking about is really about your culture. And as you and I have talked over the last few years, that really stands out to me, that is something you guys are really committed to. And culture permeates not just your employees are happy, your customers or your clients are going to be happy. I mean, there's research that shows that, but just trying to do the right thing, right? And
Yeah.
I think you guys really have that top of mind and really try to live that internally and externally. So hats off to you. That's hard to do. And
Very
it,
hard.
again, it is telling when you have these people who have been with you, for a really long time.
20 years with their whole
Yeah,
careers. Yeah. No, one of
yeah,
we have, we're again, the hokey management books, we do like them. And one of our values is do the right thing even when it hurts, right? And that's that same thing of like, there are decisions that we could make that would maybe be better for the bottom line or something like that, but they're not the right thing to do.
yeah,
So, we had somebody, if somebody's got a family crisis, our first reaction is leave, get out, go deal with that. Like, we got you. And when they come
yeah,
back, we're not picking. And I have so many horror stories of other, not just law firms, but places where something like that happens. And, they're getting calls while they're in the emergency room, or they're getting calls while they're, at a bedside or something. And, we just won't do that. We just won't.
yeah,
And so there, and, it does, that requires a real commitment from everybody in the firm because, I was at one point I had said, I had sent something around. I was like, when somebody falls down, there's got to be somebody there to pick them up. And then got to be somebody there that like helps them get back, helps them feel better about themselves, gets them back into the game because everybody's going to fall down. And
yeah,
you can't have an environment. I don't want to work in an environment where somebody else's downfall is utilized for somebody else to benefit. Right. And
yeah,
that's just, I take the long-term approach, the long view, which is these are long careers. Everybody's doing this a long time. You got to, when you're on a call with somebody who's bitter and angry and, just wants to fight, it just makes everything so unpleasant and
yeah, yeah,
unnecessary and creates real friction. And I don't know why anybody wants that in their life. You want an
yeah. Well,
advocate, you want
you
strong people, but you don't want somebody who's a jerk.
Well, and you spend so much time at work. So to be able to have that supportive environment, which, I think people sometimes take that for granted, it's not necessarily out there in many places. So I think it is a real unique, special environment that you've created. So thank you for sharing that. So let's turn it a little bit to you and your journey. Would love to hear a little bit about your journey to your current leadership role. I understand how you and Bruce started the firm, but how did you know you wanted to get into law, real estate, and really, I think you're a natural leader. Was there any aha moments when you were like, I really do
No,
like leading people?
I don't know. I think it's probably, I see this with my daughter now, who I was telling you, it's my daughter's birthday today. She's adorable. Um, and I see with her that she just has this natural from birth, right? Just this thing where she's just walks in the room and assesses the room and then decides what she's going to do. And she kind of doesn't really have a she doesn't run people over, but she kind of knows like, oh, I see what I need to do here, and she just goes in and does it. And I think that's probably a trait I always had. So, um, I've done other podcasts, and people in the industry know me and my story, but from Utah, not Mormon, grew up in an environment that was very much I was an outsider, and so I had to kind of forge my path. And I didn't want to be what everybody else there was. And so I was always like different, standing out. I was smart. I have a quest for knowledge. I want to be able to do things. I love challenges. I'm not daunted by them. Um, and if I had to say what probably makes I'm not, what I see in myself that I think is of value to this enterprise is that I'm really not afraid to do things. I'm really not afraid to try. I'm really not afraid to look at something that I'm unfamiliar with and say, I need to figure this out. Right. And leading is, I think, to a certain extent about getting outside of your comfort zone. It's about getting other people outside of their comfort zone. It's seeing people's strengths, seeing their weaknesses, getting them to their best with those things in mind. And so I think as I was going through my life, and I was, whether it was college or law school, and I had to work. I didn't have money. I didn't have, I had financial aid. I didn't have the means to ever really take my foot off the pedal. And so, I got my first job when I was like 14 or something. I don't even know. And so I just was always very driven. And I don't know what that is. I almost think it's just like the core of my being, who I am. And so, I got out of law school. I took this job. In 6 months' time, I was like running deals. In a year, I was going into meetings with senior people from other law firms, men, all. I was 20 years their junior, and I was holding my own, right? And then I just kept pushing. And, when Bruce interviewed me as a, lowly associate, one of the questions he asked me, he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to rule the world." Right. And it was like, I said it jokingly, but like there's some truth in there. So I made partner when I was a fifth year.
And it obviously resonated with him. So,
Yeah, I made partner when I was a fifth year. I think I liked standing out in some way in this
yeah.
industry in particular, where there were zero or very, very, very few women. And I'm not a typical girly girl, I think, in some respects. So I can hold my own. I don't get offended easily. Which, by the way, in the 90s, you just had to not be able to be offended because that was going nowhere. And so, I think it's just who I am. And so I just always was like, oh, you need me to do this? Oh, hey guys, we should start a corporate practice. Hey guys, we should start this practice. Hey guys, we should do this. We should do this. So I was always just pushing, 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 pushing. And I think that I'm smart, and I think people know it. And so as I was pushing, everybody else was kind of like, oh, okay, well, Terri, what do you think? Terri, what do you think? And then it just evolved.
I
So,
love that.
and maybe the good thing about me is I don't actually want power. Right? I wasn't doing it because I want to be in charge and I want to boss people around, right? I do what I do because at the end of the day, I see a need and I want to help fill it. I see something that should be done and I want it to be done. And, you know, if you know this, I was on the board of my kid's school. I volunteer over. I just am like, I think I'm a little crazy in that regard. So I just think it's who I am.
Well, I think you also have such a big heart and you want to do the right thing.
I definitely do.
So,
I think.
I think that really is key just from, getting to know you. And, I love that. I think trust and doing the right thing is really important too. And, that sounds like that's your driving force versus power. Sometimes it's about me and power, and I don't think that is for you. What I've noticed. So yeah,
Look,
well,
I'm not, I am sure if you were to talk to people, like, I'm not the easiest person on the face of the earth. Don't like, yes, I really do care about getting to good results and that stuff, but I'm also
yeah,
super driven and intense. And I think I can be intimidating, or people are intimidated by me. I don't mean to be intimidating. So, it's like, I definitely had to temper myself at some point in my career because I was like just blowing through walls, and I was,
yeah,
like head down, getting it done. And it's a tough industry. And then I like realized like, oh, I gotta like be a little bit more mindful of how my bad day may impact somebody in a way I'm not thinking about, right? Like if I'm like having a bad day and an associate comes in and asks me a question and I'm short with them, or I'm kind of dismissive because I'm like stressed out, all they get is dismissed and they feel bad about it. And so they take it as something, that I have a view of them when I'm just
yeah,
like in my head. And so that's something that I had to learn, I think, also in sort of a leadership role, that my bad day, which has nothing to do maybe with anything that's happening in this place, can really kind of make somebody else's day really bad because,
and set the tone
right.
and set the tone
Yeah.
because
So it's
people
like,
look up to you, right?
yeah, so that's the kind of thing where I kind of I realized that I had to um, temper my own intensity in some ways,
Yeah.
to not really run people over when I wasn't intending to run them over, but I realized I kind of sometime
You were
was.
so focused on doing what you wanted, what you
Yeah.
needed to do. Yeah,
I mean,
I get that.
you got a client calling you up and this thing has to happen and that has to happen and you got a crisis and your kid's over here and your husband's doing this and blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah. And you're just like, I got to get out. I got to get done. And somebody walks in and they're like, hi, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, rear.
yeah,
So that's my like get out. Um,
yeah.
so it is that self-reflection, I guess. So I think that's something that I see people who are like, and I see people who are mean spirited, not intentionally, but it's just, and they don't have that awareness that like they just blew somebody's day up
Yeah.
and it was a little unnecessary. So that's something that I think, like I said, yes, I want to do the right thing. I do care about people, and I absolutely make mistakes and don't always achieve those goals.
As you're talking, I totally, think of my own journey or maturity, if you will, and I can relate to a lot of those things you were saying. It's um we sometimes don't realize the impact we could have on other people,
Yeah.
and all of that. So changing topics a little bit, if you were to go back in time, and this kind of, dovetails probably on what you just said, but what advice would you give to your younger self?
Um, I don't know. I don't lead a regretful life, right? There are definitely things that I would do differently, but I like who I am right now. And I don't know that I would be who I am if I didn't go through what I did, right? If I hadn't had the experiences I had. Moving to New York from Utah was not easy. Doing things, you know, choices that I had made that put me in, super high stress situations. There were times when I questioned whether I should have this particular job, and work at this particular firm, and I had job offers from other places and I didn't take them. And, that would have been a totally different path. And at the end of the day, it's like, but I like where I am. And so my advice to my younger self, I guess, would just be go with your gut, right? And that's kind of what I did in some weird way. I don't think I was aware of it at the time, but I knew that some of those like other job offers I were getting, or these other opportunities that were coming up, I would lose my autonomy and I would lose my ability to shape my own life. I would be stuck into a machine that I was not going to be able to probably really influence or control my own place in it. And so I knew that wasn't for me. In some part of my soul, I knew that even when I was young. So I think that, it's trust your gut. because that's ultimately what I ended up doing. I really feel like, I don't know, and maybe this is the difference between a business owner or somebody who's an entrepreneur and like people who are not, but I never feel safe. I never think that this firm is, you know, gonna survive. I never think that it's we're riding it easy. Oh, we got it made. I'm always on that edge of what's next. How are we staying ahead of the game? What are we looking at? How do we succeed? How do we move to the next step? And I guess that's how I've been my whole life. So maybe I tell myself to chill out a little bit too, but I don't know that I have, again, I don't think that's in my DNA.
It's part of your, yeah. Well, and that goes about doing the right thing. You want to continue to, not sit on success, but how do you continue to make it better, right?
Right. Yeah,
Um,
and you know this about me too. I'm big in succession planning. I think it's my obligation to leave behind something better than what I got. And so, I always tell everybody here, I'm like, you have to expect I will retire. I am not going to be sticking around this joint. I don't want to be here when I'm 70. I don't want to be here, like I'm not going out feet first from this place. Right. So I'm trying to build something that survives me not being here. I want to build, I want this to be someplace that, you know, I leave, I make it better. And, we'll see if I'm successful.
yeah, and I also, from us talking, I know you carry the weight of, you have a lot of people that work at the firm, and you know they depend on this firm living, so and continuing to prosper. So you take that very seriously, which is great.
Unfortunate. I wish I didn't so much.
So, what were some of the challenges that you faced early in your leadership roles?
Um, I think that there's no training book, right? It's like there is no prep. I try not to do this to the people who work at the firm now who are stepping into leadership roles where I was just given more and more leadership roles, but I wasn't ever, nothing was ever taken away. So it was just like, here's another job, here's another job, here's another job, here's another job. And so I was just getting overwhelmed, and um, I was failing in a lot of places that I was like aspirational things I wanted to do, and I just wasn't, there wasn't anybody that was really giving me guidance on leading in the way I wanted to lead. I really felt like I was sort of adrift in that. And I wasn't just going to be a cookie cutter of Bruce, right? He's great. He's got a lot of, positive traits, and he took the firm to where it is, and that's awesome. But he and I, we joke, it's like, how could we be partners this long? Because we are like, there are many, many ways that we are really, really different, and maybe that's a good thing, right? So it was really hard to kind of figure out and have faith in myself that I could do this thing that I had no training in. I didn't go to business school. I always considered myself not to be necessarily a numbers person. And frankly, I've realized through this process that I am 100% a numbers person, and learn new skills, step out of myself the way we're talking about. So it was just, there's a lot to learn, a lot to do, a lot to think about that no one really gave you the warning. It's kind of like being a parent, right? You just like, oh, everybody has kids, and then you have a kid and you're like, what? What? This is there a book? Yeah, there are books, but by the way, those books aren't really actually that helpful.
Yeah, and you got to internalize it,
Yeah,
right? You can read it, or someone, as you said, you've got these mentors or people that you're watching their style, and that you need to make it your own, right?
yeah,
At the end of the day, and
yeah,
see it through your lens and how you imagine it.
yeah. Yeah, and it's like, as a parent, you have kids and you're like, I don't want to be like my parents, but then you find yourself being like your parents in some ways, and then you're like, oh my God, I totally don't want to do that. And you have to have the consciousness to be able to like change in high stress situations. We all revert to our kind of like base core person, which is some of those fallbacks to maybe things we don't like. And so
Yeah.
that requires a real effort, I think, to think through. So Anyway,
Yeah.
I over philosophize things sometimes. People here, I think, get a little nuts with me because I'll be like talking about this stuff and they're like, dude, just do it. Just shut up. So yeah,
But you're very reflective, which not everyone is.
right.
So I think that's great. So changing topics a little bit, and I know this is important to you, but how do you build trust and rapport with your team and with your partners?
I think it takes a while, right? I think it takes effort of doing what you say and saying what you do, right? There's a certain amount of transparency that's necessary. I think that there's a showing that, you know, your that care that I was talking about, like I care about their careers, I want to help them succeed, taking the time to listen to them, but actually then acting on what they're saying and not just a lot of times I feel like sometimes, if you have a meeting and the end result of the meeting is that you do a lot of talking and no one else talks, then that's not really actually a meeting. That's a class or that's a podium, right? And so what I did or what I try very, very hard to do is build an environment of we call freedom, but responsibility, right? I want everyone to be in charge of their own career. I want everyone to feel like they're forging their path forward. But in doing that, they have a responsibility to not just themselves, but to their partners and to the firm. And so I'm trying to create this sense of, and we've created these groups now, these little groups that are sort of helping each other market. I've created committees that are running some strategic initiatives within the firm. And I'm trying to build that next layer of leadership, frankly, of people who are interested in the bigger picture of the firm, who are interested in trying to move the firm forward. And in doing that, I think I build the trust of the partners because I think that they see that as a leader, I'm not just up on high issuing edicts and mandates and then expecting people, notwithstanding whether they believe them, buy into them or not, to just implement. And I don't know that for me that leadership style works. I know it works for a lot of people, but I really I want to, I have my things to drive the firm, and I'm going to try to get my partners to see the vision that I have. They may not agree with it 100%, but I, they understand why I'm doing it, and they see the value in it. And I think if that happens, then people are on board with it. And then you've got that flywheel of, okay, well, now I'm participating. I understand it. I understand the metrics. I see where the results are. And I'm able to hear feedback about it and say, you're right. That's not working. Let's like make an adjustment here or there. So I want a real partnership. I don't want the partnerships that exist now where you've got, a person at the top and everybody else is a partner, but really not a partner. I guess, again, I'm kind of a little bit old school in that respect. So I do want my partner buy-in. I do want to have them feel like owners. And I think if they feel like owners and they see the results of that, then I think that they're going to be more invested in the firm.
I love that, coming from a partnership myself, spending almost 25 years at Ernst and Young, this freedom, but with the responsibility. There are a lot of partnerships that people have their own siloed business doing their own thing. They're just part of this entity. But
Right.
that responsibility piece is that, joint or group focus that it's bigger than just themselves.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think it's really important. And I also think, the many years I was at Ernst and Young, I saw that evolve to, I think those are just such great words, to freedom, but, being that accountability, that it's bigger than just you and your business. So I
Right.
love that. I think that's really a great philosophy.
Right.
Thank you
And
for
look,
sharing that.
we have a firm demographically that's actually quite young, not just the age of the firm, but most of the partners at our firm are sub 40 or sub 50, sorry. Sub 40 would be really interesting. So, so, we have a lot of young, energized, super talented, smart people who are at an arc in their career that is, just the beginning of really that big growth that you see when people are, out of law school, like roughly 20 years. And, it's exciting. And I think that giving them a platform where they can actually maybe more influence their own arc than they could at, say, a bigger firm that has probably less freedom, frankly, is a unique trait for us. And but because they also feel like they're surrounded by equally smart people. So I think it's just one of these things that we're in this unique position, and and I'm trying to, for those guys, because again, looking at my own career arc, in 10 years time, they're going to be my age and they're going to be running this place and they're going to be taking it where they want it to go. And it'll probably be different than where I wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And I want them to kind of start now thinking about, okay, when Terri's gone, where are we going to be? And because I think it's like, not that I want out, but I just think it's part of that natural progression to say, where's our company going to be? Where do we want it to be? And especially, by the way, like all the stuff that's evolving in the world, AI and competition in law firms, and the big firms are getting even bigger and bigger and bigger. Small firms are still there. These mid-sized firms are just getting gobbled up. It's like the landscape of law firms is really changing. And I think that's what I want to create. I want to create that curiosity and that, kind of like you said, not just I'm a silo, I'm doing my
Yeah.
work, I'm not thinking about the bigger picture. And then like Terri decides to retire and all of a sudden everybody's looking around going, who's running this place?
Right.
Right.
And what do we want it to look like?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, it's the whole apprentice model at the end of the day,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I
I was
love that.
interviewing somebody as a junior, and I said, I view this firm's job for attorneys to be threefold. And that is, I'm supposed to teach you how to be a great lawyer. Okay, I can do that. I got to teach you how to market. I have to teach you how to get clients, retain clients, expand clients, because that's the lifeblood, sales, right? That I don't think most places teach their lawyers how to do.
I
And
agree.
then I need to teach you the business of law. I need to teach you why and how a law firm works. And I don't know that a lot of lawyers think about that. They think about billable hours, but they don't really think about some of the other metrics that come into play. And I feel like if I can do those three prongs, if I can teach you how to be a great lawyer, if I can teach you how to be a great marketer, and if I can teach you to understand the law of business, and I'm saying but if the firm can, then you will be better in your career here or anywhere because you understand the picture of what you're doing in a full 360, right? As opposed to just that siloed, I do finance, I do leasing, I don't really have to think about anything else, right?
Right.
And that's just not. And you have natural marketers who will go out and do it, but as lawyers, that's more of a rarity, I think. Just
Yeah,
not
that's not why
what we have.
people got into the business, right?
Right. So I
So,
just feel like if I
yeah.
can do those three things, and not everybody will want to be in all of them, but if I can, even if you're not necessarily going to be the great next marketer of the world, if you at least understand it, I think it makes you appreciate those that do it because you realize how hard it is. And it also makes you understand that billing an hour does not equate to profit, right? And that kind of thing. So I just think it makes us better in our jobs.
Yeah, I think it's so important. First of all, I think how you broke up the three things is very thoughtful. The middle piece at marketing, just understanding it demystifies it a little bit. I think
Yeah.
people, the thought of hearing, at least I know at the accounting firm, we used to laugh, don't say the S word, don't say the sales word, because people have this view of what it is, and that's not me. And it's really about doing the right thing, building lifelong relationships, listening, solving your clients' issues. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that go into um, what makes someone a good marketer. So I love that. So, changing topics totally. It's always interesting to hear how leaders stay sharp. What are you reading or listening to right now?
Oh God. So I don't necessarily do podcasts, listen to podcasts unless they're very particular podcasts. I've stopped reading the news because I can't take the politics, the crazy politics that go on. It's too fractured. I long for the days of Walter Cronkite. You know who he is. Nobody
I
else
do.
at my firm knows who he is, right? But just like reporting on the news as opposed to reporting on your position on the news, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I read the journal. Yeah, I read, certain things, but I try to stay away from some of it because it's just ridiculous, I think. Try to find the facts in all of the opinion pieces that are purported to be journalism. But I because I have, you kind of know this about me, but like because I have so much of my brain is spent like a lot of hours in every day, like 12 hours a day in this job, running this firm, doing the lawyer work. When I go home, I take the bus up and back to work. I live on the Upper West Side and work in Midtown. And I read kind of just junky stuff. I read the management books fine, yes, but for like my brain sanity, I have to do things that are totally fantastical, right? Fiction, anything. I'll read great books, Pulitzers, and then I'll read like, Brandon Sanderson, which is like a fantasy novelist. And I knit, which is how I'm a big believer in, things like to stave off kind of the aging mind and those sorts of things that you need to engage body with brain. And so the knitting stuff with the proprioception and the needles, and I'm very crafty. I like to cook. I love to cook, love to garden and things like that. So I don't know that I'm honing my leadership skills so much as giving myself the ability to have my brain go a little bit on stealth mode
I
and
love that.
allow some other things to come into my head, because I think that provides clarity. Because if all I did was work, 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 and then like read books about work, 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 or watch podcasts about work, 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 I think I'd lose my mind.
Yeah.
And so,
We all need a release. And whether
right,
that's a creative, release, whether it's with the gardening or cooking or
right.
listen, I love trash. My family, I still get physical magazines. And I'm like, okay, I'm going on vacation. I'll go in the corner and just read my pile of trashy bags because
Yeah. Look,
that's how I relax.
this to me, and like sitting in a room by myself reading a book is not how I spark ideas. The Vistage meetings with our group are great for me because that's how my brain works. My brain works best sitting in a room with really smart people talking about problems, issues, ideas, innovations. And then I am like firing on all cylinders and hearing about because there's no other lawyers in our group, right? Hearing
Right.
about what other people in the group are doing and thinking about, or their businesses, really is really helpful for me because I see those other leaders. I hear what they're saying. I hear what they're going through. I hear their ideas. And to me, that's how I learn. I'm an experiential learner. And so that's the kind of thing that I was seeking, frankly. And thank God you like reached out to me, because that's been really, really helpful for me to be able to go to those meetings and have the speakers that come from Vistage and engage in that way, because it's giving me, I think if I and look, I'm on these managing partner roundtables, I'm talking to other leaders in the law firm world, but I think the law business is not run as well as it could be in many, many respects. And hearing other people from other industries has been very, very helpful for me in thinking about things in different ways and seeing what we're doing that maybe we could do better, or something we're not doing that we should be doing. And so I value those interactions and those engagements. And yeah, I'll read a management book I'll watch somebody on a podcast, but at the end of the day, it's talks with you, those Vistage meetings, my managing partner roundtables, the marketing groups I'm in, where I'm sitting with a bunch of really smart people and we're talking about things and life experiences. And that's where I get like, that's where my brain really starts working the best.
I love that. And, just in terms of our group, you have such an important voice at our group. So
Yeah. My only
we
problem is
feel,
my job stops me from coming to meetings sometimes because I get too busy, but that's a different topic.
yeah, but you're an important part of it. So I'm glad the feeling is mutual in terms of the value. So, just in closing, and this has been a great conversation. So, thank you for your time. What would you say is, whether critical success factor or the secret sauce about being an effective leader today from your perspective?
Um, I think the secret sauce is being consistent, being genuine. I think it's communication, clear expectations, accountability. It's to me, it's that kind of everybody knows what I want. Everybody knows how I'm measuring it. Everybody knows where I want to go and what their part is. So there's no mystery. And I feel like that people work with that. I
Mm-hmm.
think when there's unclear expectations or expectations are constantly shifting, or, there's a shiny object and then this shiny object and then that shiny object. And it's like, you're just like, and then you just disengage because you're just waiting for the next shiny object because the current thing is going to fall out or whatever. I want to not do that. I want to be able to adapt and adjust if things aren't working, but I want to kind of stay a course that everybody knows where they're going. And I feel like that calms people down a little bit, right? It lets them focus on the things that maybe is their best and highest use, and they know where they're headed. And I feel like
Yeah,
that gives people comfort. So maybe
I
that's
love that.
with us.
Yeah, so funny. It's like Gallup does these surveys every year, and they would say, in terms of employee engagement and satisfaction, that is like one of the top three things that is most important, that people understand what the big picture is and what their role is in terms of contributing to it. So you hit it right on the nail. It's perfect.
Right, whether I succeed at that and clearly communicate. Sometimes I think I'm clearly communicating and maybe I'm not as good at that as I could be, but that's again someplace where I have to get better.
but it's a journey.
Yeah.
But listen, thank you for your time, Terri, and for sharing your thoughtful insights around the art of leading. And thank you all for listening. This is the stuff that growth is made of.